Sometimes the devil will make you to think that life isn't fair, that nothing's going my way. And we ask ourselves, why is this happening to us? And we start to have a little pity party for ourselves. And all the while, God is letting things happen. He's orchestrating your life to bring you closer to Him. We must think about these things sometimes. In Psalms 32, the psalm that I read, it tells us to trust in the Lord in verse 3. It tells us to delight thyself also in the Lord in verse 4. In verse 5 it says to commit thy way unto the Lord. And in verse 7 it says rest in the Lord and wait patiently for Him. But how many times do we do any of these things when worry comes or the devil tries to come and attack us and put us in bitterness of soul and sorrow? I know that I'm speaking for myself, and I would say not very often. We just continue to let the devil have his way instead of giving our problems to God. I wasted 30 minutes the other day just while I was praying, just getting all worked up for no reason when I could have been finishing my prayer. Usually if we have a problem, God is our last resort that we go to. We get on the phone and call our friends, and we seek the advice of our family or even our pastor. I'm not saying that there's not times that we need advice from all these, but I'm saying we should go to God first. As I got in my 20s and started to get right with God, the devil started attacking me, and so I would go to my pastor sometimes, and he would say, well, what's your prayer life like? And I said, well, it could be better. I said, how's your reading? How are you doing reading the Bible? Well, I said it could be better. Could spend more time. And, he didn't really help me much. So a couple months went by and I had another problem, so I went to him. And I think he said about the same thing. So I stopped going to him. I just got tired of him telling me the same thing, but, he was right. We try to figure out our problems and we talk to other people, but most of the time, they don't really help. The best thing to do, what Hannah did, was just pray and spend time with God. Sometimes your family doesn't understand what you're going through. In verse 8 of 1 Samuel chapter 1, Hannah's husband didn't understand. In verses 12 through 14, the pastor didn't even understand. It says, and it came to pass as she continued praying before the Lord that Eli marked her mouth. Now Hannah, she spake in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she had been drunken. And Eli said unto her, how long wilt thou be drunken? Put away thy wine from thee. Sometimes you think no one understands you and you just want to get away and hide in a cave somewhere. But then you come to find out that your problems will just follow you. I found that out. I've been there. Most of the time when these things happen, we just want to run away from God and away from church, when God and church are what we need the most. I've heard preachers say this a lot, and they say the time that you don't feel like praying is when you should pray. The time that you don't feel like reading is when you should read. I wonder if Joseph felt that way when he was thrown into a pit, sold for a slave, lied upon and put in prison, and was forgot about. But I think he was a good example to us of how to handle all these things. Nothing ever bad or sinful is ever recorded about Joseph. Even after all these things that came upon him, he never got mad or angry at God. He just kept on resting in Him and waiting patiently. In Genesis 50, verse 20, it said, Joseph said to his brothers, but as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive. You know, if we could recognize that God is working in our lives for our good and His glory, if we could just recognize that, if we could get past that God is trying to punish us for some reason or make us worry for no reason, then we would be better off. If there's something in your life that you don't know what to do, we can keep praying until we get help from God. You know, Hannah didn't let her adversary stop her from praying. In verses 6 and 7, it says, "And her adversary provoked her sore to make her fret, because the Lord had shut up her womb. And as He did so year by year, when she went up to the house of the Lord, she provoked her. Therefore she wept and did not eat." Her adversary could have been Peninnah. You know, God may be using someone to provoke you, but you can't let that person keep bothering you. You just have to keep praying. You may not get an answer right away, but you shouldn't let that stop you. It says that Hannah just kept going back year to year and kept praying. Hannah didn't let her family stop her from praying. In verse number 8, it says, "Then said Elkanah her husband to her, Hannah, why weepest thou, and why eatest thou not? And why is thy heart grieved? Am not I better to thee than 10 sons?" And I believe that Megan probably would have slapped me if I would have said something like that to her. Basically, he told her to give up, that there was no reason for you to keep praying, that you weren't going to have a child, and that she needed to get over it. But that didn't let her stop. That didn't stop her from praying. She just kept praying. She didn't let the preacher keep her from praying. He falsely accused her in verse 14 in thinking that she was drunk. But in verse 11, she starts her prayer. It says, "And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but wilt give unto thine handmaid a man-child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head." And then in verse 17, it says, "Then Eli answered and said, Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him. And she said, Let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. And they rose up in the morning early and worshipped before the Lord, and returned and came to their house to Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her." You know, if we'll keep praying and rest in the Lord and wait patiently on Him, then you can have your prayers answered and get victory in your life, just like Hannah did. You know why the devil was fighting Hannah so much? I believe it's because he knew that Samuel would be that child that she would have. He knew that Samuel would be a great prophet and priest. And you know why the devil fights us? Because he knows if we get victory in our lives, and we get the Spirit of God, and we get His power, that we will see other people get saved, and we'll be able to witness better and see other people get saved. You know, miracles can happen, and other people can come to know God through your life if you'll just keep praying and get victory over this situation that you keep worrying about. You may be praying for someone to get saved that you have been witnessing to for a long time, and you may be tempted to give up because you have been praying for them for so long, and it just seems like they are getting worse instead of better. But I'm telling you that if you keep praying, one of these days God can save them and change their life. Hannah didn't let those things stop her. She just kept praying. You know how I know to keep praying is because God has answered my prayers before, and He can do it again. He can do for others what He can do for you. I know He can help. If He can help Hannah and others in the Bible, He can help us. He's the same God. You know, the Bible still says that He can do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think if we just trust in Him and wait patiently for Him. Are you going through something that just seems impossible? You know, it said that the Lord had shut up her womb. It seemed that Hannah was praying for no reason. She kept praying year after year, and it seemed like nothing was happening. But if you look at, it says, and the Lord visited Hannah so that she conceived, and they've tried it. They tried everything.